My name is Sinead, Senior Occupational Therapist for Acquired Brain Injury Ireland, and we welcome you to our educational video on fatigue after brain injury as part of the Rehabilitation Anywhere programme. Here at Acquired Brain Injury Ireland, we understand that fatigue can be one of the most restricting symptoms after a brain injury. And we describe this as a hidden symptom as it can't be seen easily by others or on a scan. It's important to know about fatigue so we can learn how to take control of it. This video will go through what is fatigue, how to recognise fatigue, and what causes fatigue. There's an additional video on fatigue management strategies to learn how fatigue might affect you. And we encourage you to have a look at this video also. Fatigue is a word you may have become familiar with since your acquired brain injury. It's the word we use to describe the feeling of extreme tiredness. Fatigue is one of the most common symptoms after an acquired brain injury, and some people describe their fatigue as a feeling of heaviness, a fogginess, or an extreme lack of energy. And it's a tiredness that affects daily functioning. Just as your brain injury is individual to you, so are your symptoms, and people can feel fatigue in many different forms. These can generally be categorised into physical fatigue, cognitive fatigue, and psychological fatigue, which is also known as emotional fatigue. Let's take a look at these in a little bit more detail to see if fatigue affects you. Let's start with physical fatigue. Physical fatigue affects your muscles, your endurance, and your energy levels when doing everyday activities. And you may experience a feeling of weakness or tiredness day to day, even if you do not feel like you've done much physical activity. You may have new challenges with everyday activities, such as getting ready in the morning, going shopping, or even doing some light housework. People often need to complete these activities in sections or take a rest break afterwards. There's nothing to feel ashamed of with physical fatigue. It simply tells us that your body is working harder than it used to do the same activities it used to do with ease. In some cases, ongoing rehabilitation can ease physical fatigue, but accepting help from others and using equipment can also help. Sometimes the tasks become easier with practice. Another type of fatigue is cognitive fatigue, and this can be trickier to detect. Some people with an acquired brain injury describe their cognitive fatigue as a feeling of fogginess or even having a heavy head. And for some people, they lack the focus when doing activities that require attention to detail. For most people, it can be hard to recognise cognitive fatigue. So let's take a look at a couple of examples of cognitive fatigue to see if this affects you. Some people after acquired brain injury notice that they need more time to do tasks that require attention to detail. For example, filling in a form. Some people notice that they can get to an end of a page of a book and need to start again because the information just hasn't sunken in. Sometimes people need a quieter environment to do activities that require attention to detail, and that busy or loud environments can cause distraction or annoyance. Everyday activities suddenly become more effortful, such as making a shopping list. And many people experience a headache, even a dull headache, during the day as a result of their cognitive fatigue. Cognitive fatigue is simply caused by the extra effort your brain now needs to do the activities it used to do with ease. If you find yourself drifting off or struggling to keep up with a conversation or TV programme, you may be experiencing cognitive fatigue. It's not always easy to recognise this in yourself, and most people, when asked, don't realise they experience cognitive fatigue until we give the examples we've just spoken about. Sometimes we depend on your family or friends to notice if you experience cognitive fatigue, and some of the examples that they share with us is that you could drift off during a conversation or have a glazed look across your face. They may notice that you need information repeated or have a tendency to ask the same questions. Sometimes cognitive fatigue can present as feeling a little bit more irritable or less patient with others, and sometimes a person with a brain injury can overreact to a situation, and this would normally have not been the case. It's important to recognise if cognitive fatigue is a symptom that you experience. The reason being, there's so much we can do to reduce it and minimise the effects it has on your daily life and your interaction with others. Once cognitive fatigue is reduced, it's most likely that your quality of sleep will improve, and if you experience headaches, these will reduce also. The final area of fatigue that you may experience after brain injury is psychological fatigue, and people who experience this type of fatigue may also experience anxiety or depression. This is very common after traumatic events such as brain injury. your life changed in an instant, so of course you may experience changes to your psychological or emotional well-being. Psychological fatigue can cause people to feel less patient or less tolerant towards others. And here at Acquired Brain Injury Ireland, we offer a huge amount of support for psychological fatigue from our psychologists, our social workers, and our support groups for you and your family. I encourage you now to take a look at our website for some support groups that may help you and your family.